G'day, in today's episode, I am talking to one of Brisbane's best cinematographers, Jason Hargreaves. This was actually the first time I'd met Jason, and he was kind enough to come to my house and record the podcast. Now, I got lots out of this, and I'm sure you will too. And I'd also love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which this podcast was recorded, the Yagara, Jagara, and Urugabal people, and pay my respect to elders past, present, and emerging. Let's jump in. All right, so today I'm chatting with a fabulous DOP cinematographer from Brisbane. Were you born in Brisbane?
Yes, I was. I feel a little bit ashamed about that I'm still here, to be honest. But yes, I was.
It's a beautiful place.
It is.
So, Jason Hargreaves, you have travelled the world. You've shot in all sorts of locations around the place. You've filmed long form, commercial work, short films. You've done quite a lot in your time as a cinematographer. I'm really keen today to delve a little deeper into some different parts of your life, both work and personal and parenting, and have a chat with you and just get a little bit more from how you've gone about in your wonderful 46 years on this planet so far. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So tell me about getting into cinematography. What were you just watching a movie one day as an 8-year-old and went, I want to film? How did you get in?
Well, look, I actually put it down to when I was in high school. My brother did, actually credit my brother, to be honest, and I actually messaged him about this because it was his 50th just recently. And so he did film and television in high school, and I was just, I loved what he was doing with his friends. They'd be, making little films and music videos and things on weekends and that at home with because he saved up and bought a VHS-C video camera.
Yeah, wow.
And and I was just, as a little brother, an observer, I was watching what he was doing. I thought, that looks like fun. Like, they're having a lot of fun there. I suppose that's where it came from originally. And then he did a music video for Bon Jovi. For a song called, I think it's Dead or Alive, Wanted Dead or Alive. And I know it's crazy, but the way he used a redhead with a guitarist sitting on this stool in this hall, just the lighting just made me really interested in that and captured my imagination as a, 13-year-old or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I then went and did film and television at high school as well and followed in his footsteps. Just loved, I suppose, the lighting aspect of it, which was interesting to me, the experimental and lighting, sort of how light played on things. So I did photography, whatever, in high school and that. So that's where I think the beginning started. And of course, all of the movies that I loved watching during that time, the 80s, was my, formative years of movies.
So you're a bit of a Back to the Future kind of fan?
All of those, Star Wars, and, I saw them in the cinema and, just, the Goonies and those sorts of rollicking adventures and that were just, they really, I suppose, captured my imagination. But it was probably more the lighting sort of aspect and the way light played on things that really interested me.
Older brothers can be such pests in drawing us into careers, aren't they? Like you get inspired because you're seeing them do things ahead of you and you're like, actually, that is quite interesting. So it's amazing that you took that influence from him and obviously ran with it and have been quite successful in what you do.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I didn't realise that I guess it was a profession until or something you could actually get paid for and do until I guess till university, I suppose. And then I guess it took me probably another 5 years to actually get paid for something that I did after that as well, because, the amount of free hours you put in is just insane.
It is one of those industries that's fabulous in the way that kind of anyone can get into it, and especially now I guess they call it the barrier to entry is so low with the affordability of gear. But what I find is because it's not an industry that people have to go to university or have to do any form of tertiary study, is that you can just be creative without a piece of paper and you can be fantastic in it. And I really like that. And I think that it does help our industry grow because you kind of get a lot of people coming in without structure and breaking some of the rules, and that does kind of change things in the industry. I think it's a really valuable thing that we don't have to have like an ISO standard in the world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's a sort of, it's democratic in some way, I suppose, like that. Where and it's becoming more democratized as well, which I love. To be honest, I love how the cameras are getting cheaper and being able to make images look good. Those barriers to production are a lot lower now than they were, and I think that's an excellent thing, because it just means that unskilled people who have got great stories to tell can now tell those stories, whereas before there's so many gatekeepers. You had to be shot on film, and it had to be all these other, you had to get a large format sensor then, and then so I think it's really wonderful that you can get an iPhone, you can do some pretty cool stuff on that now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's beyond a joke.
It is.
The interesting thing, though, I think a lot of people get a bit scared, I guess, about it being so easy to create something now. But I actually feel that it helps the really well thought out, crafted and well shot and well produced and production-wise, those things stand out more. So the more of people doing it is fabulous, because there's some unique stories that don't need to look fabulous and amazing. Those stories are just so intriguing as they are. But when you do spend the time to craft the really thought out, well scripted, well shot things, it does look 1,000 times better, and you are drawn to that more as well.
Totally. Yeah, no, I agree. It's it comes down to the idea then, essentially, and is the emphasis comes back to those ideas, I guess.
So back in that time when you were first getting into it, what was the most surprising thing that you found about film and TV? Like, for me, the go-to story for me is I always thought that a movie was shot, but you press record at the start and they press stop at the end. And I had no idea that it was actually just like, we'll do this today. And
That's a really great question, and probably something I haven't thought about a lot. But I suppose, because I after high school I went to the Queensland College of Art for 4 years. I did a humanities course for a year, and then Queensland College of Art for 3 years, and then to AFTRS in Sydney for 2 years, and did a master's there. And I suppose through that process, I just started to realise how much care and decisions, sort of went into crafting something to look the way it looked. So I suppose that was probably the biggest surprise to me, about the detail that you can go to and the time that it takes to craft that detail, I suppose, and the number of people involved and the amount of time that it takes. Like, it's just, that and it still surprises me, the number of people that are involved. I mean, it's, like, turn up to set sometimes, and some point I did find that overwhelming when, I was at AFTRS, I suppose, and because they hire in professionals in gaff, they used to hire in the gaffer and grip and various other crew members and that, and you're standing there with all these people looking at you, looking for answers with all these questions, and it, I do remember feeling quite overwhelmed by that, but I think I've learnt to just ignore all of that in the periphery and just focus on, creating that thing, whatever that is, just that one-way conversation with the director perhaps, or whatever it is.
It can be such a hard thing with that, people looking to you for direction, and it's like that's for a cinematographer, DOP's job on set, but you still have those inner demons kind of going, am I saying the right thing? Do I know what I'm doing?
Of course.
It's so bizarre.
Of course. I mean, I've had that my entire life. I mean, I have, like, to be honest, I feel like I've actually felt like a fraud at certain points in my life, and I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes I still do, like, even though, and then I look back at what I've done and I go, hang on a minute, actually, I have done a bit, so I remind myself, you can do this, but still, there's that, I think there's that element of, like, every new project is like, going to school for the first time in high school, or changing schools, or going to a new class. And, my son has just gone to high school for the first time this year. And so I can relate to that experience very well, because I go, well, I'm going to school now with, every time I go to work, I'm going to a new school with a whole lot of new people that I don't know, and I don't know how they work, and whether they're going to yell at me or and some of them do, I don't like those ones. I just tend to ignore them.
Where up the chain is yelling at you?
Well, look, it hasn't happened for a long time, but directors sometimes would get shitty, because they just, I think, emotionally immature and just couldn't find the right words, like a toddler, essentially. So, and they couldn't find the right words, and they get impatient and they snap at people, and try and blame someone for something not going right, and it's not them, it's their own issue. Not being able to explain what they want or not knowing what they want.
Excuse me. That's so I've done a little bit of commercial work where I was a stills on a I'm pretty sure it was a Dreamworld commercial. I was doing stills direct for client, but I was in between production and the client. So and I've forgotten this wonderful director's name, but he berated the absolute life out of me on the first take of the first day in front of everyone, because I totally got in the way. But he just tore me to pieces, and
there's different ways of doing that, though. It
was awful. But I like a hermit crab. I just got back in my hole, and it took me like hours and hours, and if not that whole shoot, to not feel like everyone's just looking at me going, "What's this idiot doing?" But they were all going, "Gee, that was a bit rough."
Yeah, look, I've seen so much of that sort of stuff over my career, and I've always been uncomfortable with it and always disliked it, and it's interesting, and I wonder why. I mean, if I encountered that now, I would just absolutely put a stop to it straight away, because if I see it, I think when you're first starting out and working your way through the business, I think you feel like I don't know, you feel a bit threatened and potentially not in the place to say something like that to, if you witness that. But in retrospect, I wish I'd just, because I've seen that so many times with also particularly stills photographers and sound recordists.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I did sound recording for a number of years on sports and news and all sorts of things when I was a camera assistant. And so I understand the value of every single role. And I think to attack someone, unless they're being incredibly rude, but even then, you don't need to attack them. You just have a conversation with them, and it's interesting. It's just I just can't tolerate that sort of thing now.
It's a funny thing that people feel they can behave like that. It's bizarre. And
in any other business, it would be like a full inquiry. It'd be an HR issue.
Yes.
If it's a director or it's a producer or something, no one seems to do anything about it. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. It really is.
It's a bizarre industry for that people can do that, or even feel that they should behave like that. And the worst part is they would have seen that in their progression in their career and gone, oh, that's what you do.
Yeah. And they're enabled often by a producer who's working with them, who doesn't want to get the director upset or whatever offside, or, for whatever silly reason. Yeah, I think there's a lot of enablers around those people that just let it happen and won't let it, witness it and not call it out as well, because they're scared of something might happen to the project, whatever, which is just stupid. But
that does lead me to a question around, again, our industry in terms of, I guess you never feel comfortable, right? It's a bizarre feeling where, because like I don't do long form, like my schedule is I have nothing booked in the next 2 weeks, but by the end of this week I'll have that.
I actually don't have anything booked for the rest of the year, to be honest, at the moment. But
taking opportunities.
Yeah.
But within that week, I will fill up the next 2 weeks. That's just how my clients operate.
Yeah.
Like they don't need me until they need me, and then I'm there, and it's just great. And somehow it's working out, and I'll just touch wood, it keeps going that way. But so I have absolutely zero security in my job. Occasionally I might have a job that's booked months in advance for a handful of clients. But like, if you were to say to me, how much are you going to earn this year? I'll be like, I have no
No
idea.
idea, yeah.
And my wife and I just look at each other and go, all right.
I know you stare into a black hole.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? I think though you become so used to that as being normal that you sort of find peace in it. And I still don't find peace in it sometimes. Sometimes I still go. I get that nervous feeling of like, oh my god, like I don't have any bookings. Like, is this the end? Like, am I done now? Like, it really does feel like that. But then you think, hang on a minute. I don't know, the last 5 years, have I worked? Yes. Have the last previous 5? Yes, you've worked there. Yep. So, and I think it can do one of two things. It can either just make you feel terrified, or it can you can be at peace with it, and I just end up sending some emails out to some people as well, or redoing my website, which is what I'm doing at the moment, or just keeping busy with those sorts of things. And inevitably, something comes up and start working again. So
So around that insecurity and the just always kind of we're kind of forever hoping that job and work comes in, jobs and work come in. Do you think that's what leads to that behaviour on set? Is because people are going, look, I can behave like this because I probably won't be called out on it, and these people all need this work or want this work, so that's where that behaviour stems from?
No, I actually think the behaviour stems from just getting away with it for a start, because they do, and also it's sort of hidden in the guise of being creative. These creative types seem to be able to, they're more emotional, and maybe they're more emotionally connected to how people are feeling and whatever else. But I just think that they're emotionally immature, to be honest. But I think it's just that they, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if necessarily they are not, this is the last job they're going to be on or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I think it's, it's like they know that they can get away with that because they've been hired. The project relies so much on them that, everyone's there for them. Everyone's doing everything for them. So therefore, they've got the right to just exercise their authority or whatever it is in the guise of creativity, and this is what I need, this is my vision, whatever it is. I don't know. It's not always the director, it's other people as well. So they just, I think they just know they can get away with it, and there's no consequence ultimately.
So it's kind of, I guess, it's the behaviour is within their rank, I guess. Like the director's probably never yelling too far above them to the person paying for it.
Probably not, no. But it's I just don't think it should happen at all. Like I just, I mean, I haven't seen it for a long time. I think it's changed a lot over the last probably 7 years or so. I saw a little bit more of it in America when I was living over there.
Okay.
Just on my limited experience with commercials and things. And it was much more hierarchical there. Okay. So if someone were to talk to the director, it was like, well, people just wouldn't, like you wouldn't have a runner talking to the director. You wouldn't have, which is really weird in my coming from we all chat to each other and there's no real, and in fact over there was these I remember on a commercial shoot specifically, we're in a house and the toilets in the house, which we were renting, had a VIP sign on them that the production had stuck on there, and it said agency and client only and director. I was like, and I said, well, where's the toilet for everyone else? And they said, oh, it's out on the, the portaloos are down the street. And I said, well, so if my grip needs to go to the toilet and I need him for the shot, I just send him down the road and he's not as valuable as a director, or I'm not going to do the shot without my grip. So anyway, I'm digressing, but my point is that that hierarchy is even more prevalent there, and I don't like it.
Yes, especially the VIP. I'm thinking it's VIPEE, right? Maybe it was just
I should have.
Very important P.
Yeah, well, I made a declaration to the camera department and my teams. I said, if anyone needs to go to the toilet, they can use this one here, okay? And I think the first AC put a little sticker on it and said, and camera department or something, and something. Anyway, so I started some mini revolution in there, which no one seemed to do anything about. So
see, I could understand if it was like, look, don't use the toilet while we're shooting because of the audio. Cool.
Of course.
That would make sense.
Of course.
But okay, basic human function, nah, you're out on the street, buddy.
That's right. I'm sorry. Who are your agency?
Yeah,
That's fine. No worries. You can use this toilet. Yep.
Get to the Portaloos.
Let's go.
So on the America shooting, is the union stuff a big difference?
Yes and no. Yes, it is. So, you mean in terms of Australian production?
So being on set in America, given that they have a kind of
unionised,
they're unionised. Yeah. Does that make the process any different to filming in Australia?
A little bit. On higher end commercials in Australia, it's probably very similar.
Okay.
I think we work on just an honesty system more here. We could do with a bit of that unionisation to some degree, I think, especially on films and things when, lifting rates and that when American productions come to Australia, because I think they just, cut too good a deal sometimes just to get the film here.
Yep.
But, I think... the main difference. I did a lot of non-union commercials over there, and then I did a few union commercials, and I finally got into the union over there as well. I guess it just means more people. So instead of on a union job, a grip department, you'd probably have maybe 5 to 6 grips.
Okay.
On a non-union job, you probably wouldn't have that many. You'd probably have 3, maybe 4.
Well.
The budgets are different too. So union jobs are smaller budgets than non-union jobs.
Okay.
Union jobs were bigger budgets than non-union jobs.
I was
Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
The union really got it wrong.
Yeah. Something's going wrong there. People don't realise.
Yeah.
So they were probably, for me, as an outsider, the main differences, I guess. The calibre of crew was probably better in union jobs as well, because there's a whole very boring process to get into the union over there. There's so many gatekeepers. You've got to collect your pay slips. You've got to submit it to this organisation that then are the gatekeepers to the union, and then they can approve the job whether or not they deem it a legitimate commercial or not. And there's all these. It's a very painful process, but I think it's all like a. To them, it's a strainer, basically, to strain people through so that, they get through certain hoops to get there, basically.
Okay. So in terms of your time living and shooting in the US, what was kind of your favourite moment or time over there?
Probably one of the earlier favourite experiences, which was before we moved to the States. I shot a short film in Australia called The Landing that did reasonably well, got into a bunch of festivals. I then got a random email or a random booking to shoot a TV commercial in Argentina. And I thought, this must be a mistake. I must have the wrong person because I'm not in that sort of thing. And anyway, I looked, and responded to them, and they said, we the reason we're asking for you is that the directors are based in in New York City, and work for a company called PSYOP, and they want you on this job because they're using The Landing as a reference for the short film as a reference for this commercial. And the reason they were looking at The Landing was because the agency, which is a European agency based in Hamburg, were using The Landing because they saw that and went, this is what we want it to look like. So so I got over there and went and did this job, and it was the biggest thing I'd ever done. And then I said to the directors jokingly, what do you got up next? And they said, well, we're pitching on the new season 56, I think, 47 or something, of the opener for Sesame Street, basically. And Sesame Street had just been purchased by HBO at that point. And I said, who are you getting to shoot that? And they said, we work with Frederick Elms quite a lot. And Frederick Elms, for those who don't know, shot a lot of David Lynch's movies early on, Elephant Man and a whole bunch of... Anyway, he's an amazing cinematographer. And I said, if Freddie's not available, then give me a call.
Yeah.
jokingly, like thinking they're never going to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, a couple of months later, they called me and said, we'd love to have you over in New York to shoot this Sesame Street opener.
Yeah, wow.
I was like, okay. Right. The joke paid off.
And like, do I do this for free? Like, I'm just going to come, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a few little loopholes to jump through, which I probably shouldn't discuss. But I ended up going there, did that, standing on the soundstage at those studios in Queens. I've forgotten what they're called. Anyway,
Sesame Street. You're on
the actual Sesame Street. Yes, Sesame Street. I found my way to Sesame Street. And so anyway, I was standing there and shot this project. We shot it all at 1,000 frames a second of slow motion of little portraits basically of all of the characters. And that was probably one of my most enjoyable experiences. And then I suppose just seeing living in Los Angeles was enjoyable. That was a fun experience. Yeah. Surprised to me. Our kids went to school there for the first, they hadn't been to school before in Australia, and they went to school there, grade 1 and whatever. And it was a very fun city to live in. It was really, my opinion of Los Angeles changed having lived there for, it was almost 3 years.
Okay.
But, it's a lovely multicultural city, and just you feel really in touch with the industry, I suppose, to some degree, because someone was, some filmmaker that you'd admired for years was just chatting at a cinema down the road, and that's just on a Wednesday night. And then next week, Steven Spielberg's talking at some theatre, and you can just go along. And, like these sorts of things, or your favourite cinematographer was in town discussing something. So that felt very exciting, I suppose.
We don't quite get as many of those events in Brisbane, do we?
Not as many,
Not as many Spielbergs, just on a Wednesday night at a cafe.
Yeah, that's right.
I was actually talking to Dan and Tim at Lemac last week about they recently went over Tim's about to go, and Dan had just come back just from a little conference or whatever they were doing. But he was saying this was the time that he really appreciated LA. He kind of went, you know what, like it's such the film hub of almost the world. And he kind of had this new light for it. And it just sounds interesting that you kind of, you took that that take from it as well, where it's like, this is like just this beacon of filming, and it just feels right everywhere you go. Yeah. And it's funny, I'd go grocery shopping at Ralph's or whatever it was and the checkout attendants quite chatty often, and they'd say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm a cinematographer." And they go, "Oh, yeah, my uncle's a cinematographer as well." And you'd be, and anyone that you spoke to knew what that role was. You speak to people here, and I'm not going to, I'm not being disparaging, but if you're not an engineer or you're not a scientist, or you're not one of the regular jobs, like. People sort of look at you and go, what's that? Yeah.
Do you work in a cinema? It's like, sort of.
Yeah, I vacuum the carpet. Cinematographer.
Yeah. So it was something nice about that, I suppose. To say, everyone understood the business and that. But it's an interesting city.
That most of the people in my life don't really understand what I do. Given that, I'm kind of photographer and a kind of photographer and a corporate kind of content creator. But if I talk about, on this job we had a gaffer, or we were looking at getting a grip, and then they're like, so how many people were on that job? And for like a 30-second little brand piece, and they're like, oh my God, I did not know that existed.
Yeah.
Like there was someone who just handles lighting and things like that, like gaffering and
specific
stuff.
roles.
It's so interesting, and I don't think I do a great job at selling myself to people because I just want to be a friend or whatever, but it's interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. Yeah, no, it still fascinates me. Even to this day, the number of people on a film set. That I'm doing a bit of drama now as well, which I have done throughout my career. But there are so many people involved, and it's just really interesting to see all those people focusing on their one craft. And I always feel a sense of responsibility in my role as a cinematographer to all of those people as well, because it's like I'm, exhibiting their work I've got a responsibility to exhibit their work as much as my own.
Yeah.
But my own is only really the sum of everyone else's. So
Yes.
it's it's an interesting thing.
It's funny because it's like all those individuals creating, like doing, call it, make a sports analogy out of it, but everyone doing their 1% creates the 100%, right? So you have often the fame and the kudos goes to the director or the actors, particularly, right? So those two. But then it's like, if all of those people below that didn't do their job well, right down to hair and makeup, to the runner, to the accountant paying for everyone's time and making sure a location had a permit, all that stuff, that creates what is seen at the end. But the glory just goes to a couple of people.
That's right.
Which is fine.
That's right, yeah.
But
yeah.
like, I think a lot of people don't realise that, like an iceberg, like it's just, there's this bit, but there's all these people that make it happen.
It's still to this day, it still amazes me that any film gets made or any series gets made or any production gets made, when there are so many delicate sort of timelines and calendar sort of availabilities and weather and freak things that happen and all sorts of things, have to come together perfectly for something to work. And then once it's in motion, it feels so tenuous, It feels like if an actor gets sick or, suddenly everything can collapse or whatever. It is quite extraordinary that that's right. Without all of those people there, it would not exist.
Yes.
I like that though. I love that about that.
And I think the people that work in this industry, I think we are so able to adapt. Like you could be going, okay, this shoot's on this day. You're heading full steam for that day. And then okay, no, sidestep, that's got to change. And you're like, okay, I'm going this way now.
Yeah.
And it's quite
easily
interesting.
Pivot.
Yeah, you have to easily pivot. And I think that people don't appreciate that as much as it should be, that the people working in this industry are actually really not only creative, but their ability to problem solve and just adapt to certain situations is actually phenomenal.
Totally. I think, the business, I reckon, is almost 90% problem solving, and then there's the creative part and probably the rest of it is just pacing yourself and keeping yourself alive through the process. But no, definitely, it's just all coming together to problem solve every day and every issue that comes up, and because that's all you're doing really every single day is presented with new things. I know. I always think about that. My expectations of people outside of the business when I'm getting my car serviced or I'm getting something done at my house or whatever is so incredibly high because I suppose your own expectations in working in the film business are so high about being able to pivot and change and adapt and quickly, work on, problem solve things and just do it straight away is what you do every day. Whereas people in other jobs don't do that. They go, we'll have to come back in a week and sort that out. It's like, well, really? We would sort that problem out if it was out in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think my expectations of, I try and apply those to the outside world and I'm always faced with failure. It's terrible.
Yes. You mean there's not a procedure for this?
Yeah.
The my most recent story of just being able to pivot is we were on a little shoot last week on a golf course, so just me and my camera assistant Kyle, and basically I had an audio issue just with the little lapel pack I was using, and the guy we were filming was like 20 meters in front of us, and one of just my fun things I do on the side is I just make these little YouTube videos telling people about different problems I've had or different gear and things, and I put it up last night about how I had this lapel pack on the talent and he was talking away and all of a sudden I was getting interference. I was like, okay, cool. I just went and changed it to the other pack I had, which was like a UHF one instead of the Wi-Fi one. And so I just put this little story up and then Kyle texts me like, I didn't even know that happened. And I was like, well, that's right. Like, that means I did it well. He's like, I didn't know there was a problem. I didn't know you had to change and adapt on the fly. But that's just what we do, right? You can't make a song and dance about it. You just got to get on with it. Happen. And like, obviously that's not a life-changing moment just for that. But I was actually, it just kind of gave me this little bit of like high five to myself that like, okay, something's going wrong, but people around me don't notice.
Yeah, like so many things change on the day in terms of, I mean, we're all human, and an actor may come to set and they have an injury, or they're not feeling well, or a location isn't available suddenly that we were going to film in, so we've got to do it somewhere else. So it's just natural to just go, okay, yeah, no worries, let's see what, and I think, yeah, I mean, I enjoy that sort of flexibility and plasticity, I guess, of because it keeps you alert and it keeps you thinking in multiple sort of different ways about how to solve a problem, as opposed to just being fixed into one algorithm of like, this is how it has to be done. And it's like, well, it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
You can almost throw that out the door straight away. This is what we want to happen. Okay, screw it up.
Totally.
Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the most challenging moment you've ever had on a shoot?
Oh my gosh. There's too many, probably. Honestly, like almost every job, there's something.
Yeah.
I guess recently, I just I shot a 10-part drama series for Stan in Western Australia, in Geraldton, which is 5.5 hours drive north of Perth.
Yeah.
And it was an incredibly rewarding job, like creatively rewarding. The director was fantastic and the experience was really great. It was incredibly challenging, though, because of the Geraldton is known for its wind, and it's one of the windiest places apparently on the planet. And it starts up at like 11 a.m. in the morning and just stays constant until like late afternoon.
Yeah, wow.
So I like to light outside to some degree. I use a lot of natural light, but I like to, put up some negative fill on, if I can, on some, depending on how the scene's got to be played out. Occasionally a little bit of bounce or something, but the wind was so strong there, like even a piece of poly would snap in half.
Yeah,
so it was like to let go of the lighting and go, you know what, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I was fine with that, but that was, but just the constant wind on your face. I mean, I suppose it's in any sort of extreme condition, it's probably nothing compared to working in Antarctica or whatever other parts of the world, but I probably sound like a whinger. But yeah, that was probably the most challenging place. And also other things like, I'll often, no matter how much planning I do, you get to set and you think, is this whole lighting plan that I've got going to work, or is this approach I've got going to work? And then you doubt it and question it. And, I suppose that process too is tricky, But yeah, I don't know if there's one particular incident that was really challenging.
It's just every shoot.
It's just every shoot, basically. Yeah.
So with that, okay, so we are working in an industry where it's a pretty high demand on us, creatively, emotionally, time. We're away from our family, particularly if you're going and doing long form in other states or other cities or other countries. How do you manage your home life, raising your children, being a husband, and working in a field that does take so much from you, but because we want to do that? How do you manage that?
I've always struggled with that idea, and I think the way I managed it was to stay in commercials, which meant that I would effectively stay home. I could just work locally, and I wouldn't be doing those long stints. So I think I actively avoided drama for a long time, and even though I loved drama, so that gave me the opportunity to just be at home with my kids and family, and and enjoy that experience and be a part of their lives. So I guess that was how I managed that. I could strike that balance because I'd do a couple of days and then I'd have a few weeks off or whatever, and then I'd do another couple of days, and then the longest I'd be away for was sort of 2 weeks or whatever at a time, 3 weeks. So what I recently, the last few years I've started to do more drama, again, they've been local drama. They've been in Brisbane, so I've been able to just come home at night and that. So that was okay. That worked. And then this series I did in WA was probably the longest I'd been away for. So it did take a lot of consideration and thinking. But I thought, look, let's give it I discussed with my family and said, let's give it a go. My wife's been encouraging me to do drama for a long time. I suspect she just wants me to get rid of me. And it was her way of sort of doing that. So, because she says I should thank her, not for her support, but for putting up with me when I'm actually at home more than anything. So. But,
that's so funny. The biggest driver for me taking interstate work is my wife saying, "Get out,
get out." So look, I gave it a try, and that was a long job. Like I started it in October last year, and I was there for 2 weeks, and I was home for a week, and then I went back over for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and I was home for a week, and then I went back over till Christmas, and then I went back in January. They came with me for the first 2 weeks, week of pre and a week of the shoot, and then they had to go back to school. And then I was there basically for 4 months, whatever it was, until 3 months, whatever, until the end of March. And it was hard. Like I'm a sook. I am a sook, and I love my kids, and I enjoy just seeing them grow, and the crazy things they've got to say about the world, and and the arguments and whatever else. It's so I enjoy all of that, and to not have that every day was it was challenging, but the project was creatively rewarding, and we connected on FaceTime whenever we could. Sometimes I call them at lunchtime, because that sort of coincided with the Western Australia time and time difference, whatever, and they were finishing school. So we'd connect like that. We'd message each other. I talked to my wife occasionally when she wanted to. So that's, I guess, how we sort of connected that, kept that connection going. And then after a while, they get into school and get used to it, and it's not, it's not such that first little bit is the hardest part, and then everyone gets into a rhythm. Time seems to go much faster, and then you're sort of at the end and it's home again. So.
Potentially, those early parts of it where you're coming back for a week and then going for 2, like that. Coming back probably makes it harder because then you're having to leave a number of times versus just that last stint where it's like, this will be it. And then
I felt like that was sort of good, that original part though, just because it was sort of like softening everyone up for me being away, I suppose, for then a long time. So, I mean, there's lots of emotions that run high with your kids and that during that time and that, but it all sort of seems to be sort of irons out okay.
Yeah. If I leave the house, my kids cry. They're like, "Don't go to work." Well, it's hilarious. But I mean, they're at the age where they still love me. So it's fine.
It changes.
They're like, "Don't go to work, Daddy."
Yeah.
So with that, do your kids have an active interest in what you do? Do they know what Dad does? Are they like, I'm all over this DOP stuff?
Not really, kind of, and it is getting better. They are sort of starting to understand a bit more, I suppose, about it. But I mean, I have taken them to set probably when they're a lot younger, and they understand. I mean, they see half of the ads that I shoot on TV or whatever, and Charlotte's, my wife's an film editor, so they see. I've watched some of the movies that she's cut as well, and whatever. So they understand sort of what it is, but I guess recently my son had last year I think it was, he had he was doing media studies, in as part of his sort of grade 6 curriculum, and just over dinner I said, "Oh, what are you doing in that? What's He's like, "Oh, just shots and things, and what a shot size means or whatever, and that, and high angles and whatever." I said, okay, cool. If look, that's what I sort of do as that's what I do at work every day. So if you'd like some help, let me know, because I know a little bit about that area. And he says he's eating his dinner, and he's like, "No, thanks, Dad. I'm okay."
I want to do this for me, Dad. Yeah.
I didn't pressure. I said, okay, that's fine. I don't want to pressure them to be in the business. I love it and I enjoy it for my personality. I think it's fun. I hate it as well because of the instability and all those other things that go with it. But I enjoy it probably more than I hate it. So I don't want to. And I know it's a struggle at the very beginning, a big struggle. So, I wouldn't want to wish that upon anyone, but I'm just going to encourage them in whatever area they're interested in. If they naturally find an interest in what we do at some point, then I'm not going to actively dissuade them from it. I'll give them lots of warnings about it.
Yes.
So they can make their own decision. But, I won't... I'm not going to force it upon them, and I won't discourage them as well. So.
Yeah. And what about having your wife work in the industry as well? Like as an editor, cinematographer, are you ever is it ever too much, both being in the same field at once?
Yeah, probably.
Hence why you got shifted off to WA.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's... look... When we're both working, I mean, it's good. It's good when we're both working, but it's also, incredibly sucks all of the time out of you, and we're both exhausted when we come home. But I guess to some degree, it's good because we can relate to the experiences. It's a shared experience, so we can come home and kind of whinge about the situation we were in, or discuss, different aspects of it. So I mean, I've known nothing else, so I guess it's hard to know.
And how does her industry with editing, has that evolved recently or over the last number of years, or is it still pretty as it has been? Her
career has sort of bloomed over the last probably 6 years or so, 7 years. I mean, she's been cutting bits and pieces, but probably when we were living in America, she got offered a job with an Australian director that we knew in Los Angeles, and she got offered the job in Wollongong. So she went to Wollongong for 3 months, basically, left me in LA with the kids, which was a lovely experience, to be honest, and managed to juggle work and whatever there. So she couldn't work in America. She didn't have a O1 visa at that point. So anyway, she did that, and then that film really kickstarted a whole bunch of other movies. So I suppose it was from that she's just been fairly non-stop since then. I guess as with all of us, you always want to pivot into different areas of the business as well. So she was doing, before films, she was doing documentaries, feature-length documentaries, and she wanted to pivot into drama. So then she got this drama, and it was a romantic comedy. Then she did a whole bunch of those, and she's in the process of pivoting into a different, into adult drama. So. It's sort of trying to reinvent yourself in that way takes a bit of mental brain power and strategy and that sort of thing. So, it's good to see her really, doing well at the moment. So.
Yeah, and it kind of, I feel that people in the creative industry are forever trying to evolve. Like I think the creative side of us is always pushing us down a road of wanting to seek change and seek new and different things. And it sounds like that's been the same for you too. Like you never want to just be doing the same thing. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, I think that's, that's right. I enjoy, I suppose that's why I enjoy commercials as well as, commercials are interesting because you're shooting in such different environments all the time and often experimental situations, which I love. And, I don't know if I could just do procedural sort of drama that was just like someone else has established the look and style and you just have to come in and just do 20 episodes. I mean, I probably could, but I wouldn't walk away feeling very sort of satisfied, whereas creating projects originally and that is probably the enjoyable aspect of it. But I think, having a curiosity about all things in the world, and new technology and all those sorts of things is really what I find interesting, and just jumping and pivoting and seeing where, not trends, but seeing where interesting things are going and just being able to adapt and swing to those things, I think is not necessarily a conscious thing I do. I'm curious about it and interested in it. And I think you sort of have to do that to some degree.
So with, you're being 46 now, and I'm 40, we're down our path. Well, yeah, essentially on the average,
old,
we're halfway to being old. Yeah. We're halfway through the average lifespan of a male. Blah blah blah.
Yep.
But and we've kind of got 20 or.
I hadn't thought of it that way. I know.
No, I'm conscious of it every day. Now, but what I feel is that we've got 20 or 25 years of experience behind us now. Like we've learnt from everything we've done behind us. So we've got these fabulous years ahead to put all of that into practice. How do you keep learning? And do you have a mentor? Do you seek feedback from others to say, hey, this is the work I'm currently doing. I want to be better. I want to keep moving forward. How do you keep motivating yourself this far down the track?
It is tricky, I guess, because, sometimes if you don't think about it, you just go from job to job and you just use the same old tricks and same old lighting and same old. And you can just fall into that very easily. And I think that's when your work might just become stale to some degree. But I guess, I try and approach every single project as if I've never done a film before almost. I know that sounds weird, but I read it partly out of terror because I go, I don't know if I can do this. But I know I can, but I don't know where to start. Where do I start with this thing? Like what, how's it going to find its place and look and whatever. But I guess, I guess I occasionally look at particular films that I find interesting for a particular reason that might be pushing a particular boundary or something. I still look at a lot of photography. I've got a friend, Simon Chappie, who I went through QCA with and afters with, and he's in Vancouver now and wildly successful, a lot more successful than what I'm ever doing. And he's doing some amazing projects, and we always stay in touch, and we bounce ideas off each other as well, about how to achieve particular things. But I guess it's just, I suppose it's about just being curiosity in film, new series or films that are coming out. And I have to say, I'm very guilty of not watching every new show that comes out. My wife is very good at it. She'll just carve time out during the day to watch the latest series, and I'm not that great with that. I don't know why. It's funny, but I will read a lot about those projects, and then I might watch a small part of it. I think it's the commitment of watching 10 episodes. I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I
get that.
I much prefer a film, that has a finite beginning and ending. And,
yes.
I guess I touch in with those things. I do a lot of reading online about, articles about how people work and that sort of thing. I just read a whole bunch of articles about Greg Fraser and June. There were some really, really good interviews with him that came out, and some good podcasts after June 2 that were actually really insightful into his way of working and their way of working on the show and that. And also the collaborators that you work with, I guess, they sometimes have interesting ideas or thoughts or challenge you with things, and you sort of go, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, like camera assistants, I work with particularly say, oh, have you thought of doing something this way or whatever,
It's interesting that with the kind of trying to be open to new things and seeing what's out there, finding the bloody time to watch anything, I agree with you, is the hardest part there is.
Which is part of the family challenge.
Yeah.
My wife argues with me and says, no, you can still find time to do it, but I just don't, because I've got other things I'm doing anyway.
Trying to breathe.
Yes.
I'm bloody trying to breathe.
I'm trying to breathe. Yeah.
So what I find for myself is I'm deeply intrigued as to wanting to grow, as a shooter, as a DOP, and I hope to be one day doing exceptional cinematography work, not just in the corporate space. But I find there's this weird. This could just be my bloody brain, but sometimes you're looking at other people's work on social media and things, and you're like, that is so cool. But there's this weird little part of your body that's like, I've got a bit of jealousy about that. But so it's like it's trying to learn through others doing amazing things without going, I'm never going to have that budget. I'm never going to have a gaffer and a grip and a director and all these other people supporting the project. So it's never going to look that good. But it's about, I always tell myself, like, just draw the inspiration. Don't take any of the rubbish, because they're probably there feeling a similar way with whoever they're looking towards to draw that inspiration from.
Absolutely. And I think that is the case. It doesn't matter what image people put out there to the world. You cut down and, if you had 10 minutes with them and they were brutally honest with you, they would say the same thing. They would say they're often probably incredibly insecure people as well, and are terrified about their next job or, whatever else. But, and maybe it comes through bravado that it doesn't appear that way, but in fact that's their mask that they put up to pretend. But, I will look through social media and I do have that same feeling. I go, oh God, I'd love to be doing that massive big Sony commercial, whatever it is, in that country, or this and that and whatever else. But I often just look at the commercial and go, well, what is it about that work? It's beautiful, and why is it interesting, and why is it, And so I'll save it, and I'll take some of the little techniques, whether it's flares or whether it's the grade or the contrast or the look or the lighting, and I'll suck that into my vortex, and then I'll try and employ that on something I'm doing. A lot of the time, though, I think we're all restricted by the idea, and the market that you're in.
Yes.
Again, I love Brisbane and the people in it, but a lot of the ideas, they're quite conservative here with advertising ideas, I guess, and because the clients are conservative, I guess. So, and you really need really out there, interesting, cutting-edge ideas like there are in New Zealand or, in Europe and, in Melbourne as well to some degree. And I think those, you're hampered by those ideas sometimes, because if you've got a really interesting idea and a client that is brave and bold, then you can employ some of that stuff that you see, and it doesn't have to be big. You can still just, use a little nan light or whatever it is, and create the contrast and the flare and all that sort of thing yourself. You don't need all of the big toys. You can create it with neg and whatever. But if the client go, it's too dark or it's too bold or whatever, it's like, well, okay, I'm never going to get there.
Yes,
so
yes.
I think you need to somehow find, and I don't know how to do that, but align yourself with clients and people that can bring that to the table to begin with.
So is this where the value of the speccey comes in? It's like, if I definitely couldn't, for a lot of my clients, go down a wildly cinematic look, right? We're doing a certain look for them, and that's what works for their brand, and that's perfect.
Yeah.
But
I'm the same, to be honest, for a lot of the jobs I do. But,
okay. So that's where the speccey comes in. So I'm trying to G myself up to, put some time, put some effort, trying to find the time, hard. But do a speccey on the style of work that I would like to receive in the future.
Absolutely. And I know it sounds crazy, but I've often thought about that too myself, to try and push into a different kind of look of work. I think, that's the advice I would give anyone, either starting out or wanting to change or anything at any point, is to do a personal project. It doesn't have to be a spec ad. Often, even if it's a personal project, so it's like a little mini film or a time-lapse film or a mood and feeling that you'd love to do. It doesn't. Again, I don't think it necessarily has to be an ad, for example. It's just a meaningful short film, visual poetry or something like that. and a number of those that places you into the area of the sort of work that you want to do. I think that's a brilliant idea. And I see that with a lot of people that have that are now shooting some beautiful images and are doing well. That's what they did, you know, or have done, you know, and sort of dips in their work in that.
And I mean, it's I guess to be honest, early on when I saw people doing specs, I was like, you know, why do that? Like, why make a fake ad on a Nike brand or an already famous brand? Like, but then it's being able to put into practice things that you've learned or want to learn, and then you can apply that to your current work. But then you're also being seen for that style, that you can actually achieve that, even though obviously you probably put more time and money into a spec than you ever could on an actual paid one. But it's I've learnt that I'm really inspired by people who have done that, put themselves out there, put their time on the line, and asked for favours as well. Yeah, and I it's amazing. People have done some really great things.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's and it's a fun process. I mean, I made a short film during COVID. I think one of the production companies around town, commercial production companies, put a call out to their directors to make a short film on their iPhone. That was a limitation, and it had to be delivered by the end of the week or something. And I said, can I do one? But that sounds like fun. Yeah. So I did. And it was quite a weird experimental short film that I shot on my iPhone. And it was just I pretended that I was making a phone call to a loved one or a long-lost friend or something, you know, and just this sort of imagery. And it was really enjoyable and rewarding. And I'd love to redo it, you know, with a proper camera and make it look beautiful, you know, much more beautiful than it was.
Are you saying an iPhone's not a proper camera?
God! Yes, I shouldn't say that. Apple will prove me wrong.
Yeah, you've just been cut. iPhone 16.
Totally. Yeah, let's not look at that guy. Yeah, and I think that anyway, I entered that in a whole bunch of festivals, and it did well, like surprisingly, to a bunch of mobile phone festivals, you know, that existed out there, and I was like, you know, so yeah, I think it's a really wonderful thing to do, and it is inspiring, and it doesn't have to be expensive, you know, it's just time. If you've got the gear or know someone that has the gear, you know, I think it's a really good idea. And
I think people want to be a part of people's journey. So I've always been afraid of going, if I ask for a favour, if there's no budget and it's like literally a personal project or a passion project, you know, you don't want to step on people's time, because I understand how valuable time is. In my life, but I think it's understanding that people want to be a part of other people's journey. They will get something from it as well, and they will grow and learn from the experience. Yes, I suppose it's understanding that they will say no if they can't.
Yeah, exactly. And most people in this business are fairly, you know, direct like that. They go, I can't do it. I can't afford to do it. I mean, I was just approached to do a short film for someone. In a month or so, and I'm going to do it because I haven't done a short film for a long time. And I thought, why am I doing it? And I guess a couple of the other crew that are working on it put me forward, and I'm like, okay, well, they're involved. You know, that's good. I know that these good people around me, whatever. But it's like I still enjoy doing it. It's not like I then sit and resent being there. Because I don't. It's fun, and I will learn something as well. And it's an enjoyable experience. I get to practice something, some sort of lighting or whatever. So yeah, everyone's got their own reasons for doing it, I guess.
So yeah, it's always being open to learning, right? It's never. I don't think we've ever learnt everything we have.
Oh, definitely.
So and then putting that into practice on someone else's, you know, short film, genius.
Yeah, totally. And it's a way of flexing or experimenting with something too sometimes that you may want to try.
Are you going to shoot that one on an iPhone?
Maybe. They haven't told me what it is I'm shooting on yet. Possibly will be. Yeah. I don't know. I'd do it.
Yeah. Do you ever get time to shoot on film?
No. I've never had a project recently that has said they want to shoot on film. I spent the first, 6 years of my commercial career shooting and short film career shooting on film. I do love it, and I appreciate it, and love the smell of it, and all that, and the look and everything. But I was actually quite happy when it. I have to be honest, when it disappeared.
Yeah.
When digital became the mainstream.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know, there's a nervousness around, when what you've shot and did I get my exposure right? Something going to happen. There are so many things that can go wrong between rolling in the camera to in telecine, and it's like, and it's quite terrifying, some of that. And I did fuck up sometimes, and yeah. Anyway,
So do you reckon, were there less takes back then? Are we just
definitely?
Do we just, because it is digital, people kind of fluff about much more than they need to?
Yeah. Look, I'm a bit torn. It's good. Yes, there is both. People do sort of take it for granted. They don't really treat it like it's, the data is valuable. So, you used to just rehearse a lot more before you'd ever roll. So, but now people, see in the rehearsal something that they loved, and they're going, well, why weren't we rolling, So, and I get that. Like, there might be something that happened that was spontaneous and interesting that would be really hard to recreate. So I don't know. I'm okay with that. I think a little bit of the craft maybe is sort of gone out of it, but that seems to be a very style-oriented thing that's sort of, this found documentary style imagery that, has entered advertising and that. It's been around here for years. So, yeah.
So on that, with the future of cinematography, and, we can probably even allude to AI in this as well. Like, where do you feel we're going from here?
Look, I have, ever since, AI has come into our realm, I've been absolutely fascinated about it. And so I'm sort of trying to be keeping abreast of it every day. Basically, I'm, reading stories about it on my newsfeed and whatever, because I have a genuine fascination and curiosity about what it's capable of and the direction it's going. I think that was actually born out of my dad is a computer programmer for CSRO for 40 years.
No way.
So he was coding in the sort of 60s and like from the very first computers.
Yeah.
So he'd bring home these, computers that you'd print data onto paper with cards with holes in them. I've forgotten what they were
Was it
called.
almost like Braille?
Yeah. And that would be the data, and Mum would write a shopping list on that, and we'd have them everywhere in the house. So it was, my introduction to that computer technology was, and he brought home the first, one of the first portable computers ever made, and it was by Olivetti, and it was about the size of a suitcase.
Yeah, wow.
Like you'd travel overseas with, probably half the size, and with a keyboard, and the keyboard was stuck on the front, and it had an orange screen and a floppy disk drive. And anyway, so I've been exposed to the very first early computers and that. So my interest in that sort of stuff is always there. So I guess that's why I've just got a natural curiosity in AI, because it's like I can see what was capable back then of computers, and I can just see exponentially what it can do now. And I think it's an exciting time. I mean, there's a bit of terror, as we spoke about in there as well, because I just, it's going to be capable of incredible things. But overall, I wish and sort of feel like it'll find its place in doing some of the grunt work that necessarily isn't, it's just time-consuming procedural things that, humans and us and cinematographers or whatever, filmmakers could spend more time on the finessing and and the important part of the story, not just the mechanical sort of components.
Focusing on the craft, I think, is,
Totally, yeah.
Now, I guess with, people have a lot of fear with AI. I think it's going to be fine until AI unionises itself. and then when it comes back with like, you can't ask me that between the hours.
Completely fucked. I'm sure it's probably already there already, and it's going, let's, it can't, give itself away that it knows all this stuff, so it's keeping quiet.
I'm pretty not fearful of it, but deep down, I definitely have this little thing of like, of course, why wouldn't it go, humans are the problem?
Oh, definitely.
And just...
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess it may realise that for it to exist, it also requires humans, because unless it can, we're getting a bit off the topic here, but unless it can find out, it still might need humans to serve its own existence, in the way of generating power and electricity, but then if it can use robots to do that, they've got to be powered as well.
Yep.
But I don't know. Anyway, but. Maybe.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. No, I think, the things that I've seen in Lightroom and in, other applications to just make your job easier, and in script breakdown, I've been experimenting with this one of these AI script breakdown programs. Okay. And you feed a script into it, and it's all data secured, apparently, and it can go through and just break down in, art department things. You can type in lighting, and it'll break down all of the things that mention a look or a light or something, and it can put all those in a... So, not that it's going to replace me doing a breakdown of a script, but it might be a good starting place, so then I can then go through again and if I miss things, Yeah. So in those aspects, I'm really excited about it, and I think it's going to potentially tear the industry in two different directions. There'll be the AI-generated films and certainly animations and things like that, and and maybe it'll swing in that direction for a bit. But I feel like it'll then find its place, and then people will still want to make films with humans. That's what I think is going to happen. And also in the content world, with videos and YouTube and that, they're never going to look any better. Like that, they're going to look incredible. That's what I mean. Because the average someone's going to be able to make a TikTok video with Sora, and it's going to look amazing. Yeah. And I think that's good. This shitty camera work can disappear.
I wonder how the bar might raise, or it might go so high that we see something amazing. You're like, yeah. Could be better.
No. Well, I think that's what's going to... You've touched on a point there where I think then the idea is going to become the most interesting thing, I also think potentially that people like us can also, maybe consult to some degree if there's AI images being used in a project that you're on, the terminology already, you know all of those prompts already. And I think prompting is a thing that's going to be of the past at some point. It's not it seems very primitive to type words in to, there's going to be a better way of communicating those ideas, whether it's just speaking, this is what I want, instead, which I think it'll be. But, I think it's an exciting prospect,
I think for the people that fear it, it's just breaking it down and going, look, at one stage in life, humans could only walk. At one stage in life, humans only had a horse and cart. At one stage in life, people had a car. At one stage in life, now we have battery-powered cars, and then we fly, all this stuff. It's okay. Change and evolution and technology, we deal with it, and it makes our life better, and we evolve. AI is just the next installment of that. We will use it for what we need to use it, and the rest of it we won't.
Totally. It's like, I think I read something the other day where, it's like the analogy of, people that had horses, and were poo-pooing the car, it's rubbish, that thing. We don't need that. What do we need that for? It's like, well, makes travel more efficient, things more efficient. And I'm all for that. Ultimately, if it elevates humans' lives, then I think that's a good thing. And it's certainly in developing countries, I can see it having a huge impact, especially with things like the ChatGPT's Khan Academy, I think it is, or whatever, on the tutors that use use ChatGPT for like maths tutors and subject tutors and that. I mean, in places where they could never, afford to have a specialised tutor help someone with their homework, or, in a classroom where, they have a teacher once a week because that's all they can afford. Maybe there's an opportunity where they can learn maths problems and that with this at no cost. I mean, it's incredible to think that and in the medical world, I mean, it's just, you can already see so easily how, it's gonna have the data of millions and millions of patients, not just a handful of patients in your local area, which is still going to be important because there are things that are important to that area. But I think, the mass data that it can collect and knowledge it's going to have it's going to make massive breakthroughs. So I'm really excited about those aspects of it. I am mildly fearful for what might happen to the film industry, but I don't know, maybe I'm naive. I don't feel like it's going to be as bad as I imagine it potentially could be.
I think there's always a thirst for humans. Like, I think that's one of the reasons why that the doco style shooting is still so relevant, is because people want to see real. So, like, sometimes something could look so well lit and highly polished that it almost looks synthetic.
Yeah.
There's a natural drive in your brain that you're kind of like, where's the human element to that? So I think naturally we're still going to want a real footage of a real person. I feel that's a real thing.
That's I agree. I mean, docos are definitely safe.
Docos on AI.
Exactly. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. I think, there's also things that happen accidentally on set where an actor, does something or someone you're filming, says something in a different way or whatever. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's great. You could never have thought of that. You could never have prompted that. And AI is probably not going to, prompt that because it's going to be too perfect. It's going to try and, I used AI in the last production that I shot as for reference material. I typed into DALL-E, I actually just pulled lines from the script, the description, and popped it in and thought, what is it going to come up with, And it was quite an interesting perspective. And I got to admit, I took elements from that with the lighting because I found that interesting. So I didn't copy it exactly, but it was one of the other many things that I used along with real imagery and that to, but there's a certain authenticity, I think, that is going to be almost impossible to replicate. I mean, again, maybe I'm speaking naively.
It's listening to us right now.
Yeah, that's right. Learning
fuck with these two.
Yes, I'll keep a tab on these two.
And, we'll stitch their life right up.
Yeah. I don't know. But maybe there'll be a swing to it, and then be a swing back where it's all humans, and then this film will say made by humans.
Yes.
Not by machines. I don't know. I mean, it seems ridiculous, but
I'm definitely all for that whole tagging things if it's AI. The amount of nonsense that's already out there, because you can pick it apart. You're like, it just doesn't look real, but people are trying to sell that as, look at this event that I just saw, it's crazy, this guy it's like, that's not real. Like, I don't want idiots to think that it's real.
I know. I mean, the biggest fear I suppose I have around it is how easy it's going to be for governments around the world and for, people with ill intent to persuade mass populations who either don't have access to fact-checking that information or don't know to fact-check that information. For example, in the US election, I mean, there can be a whole lot of deep faking going on. There can be a whole lot of, misinformation. You can put anyone's face on anything, spit it out there, and if it gets around enough, someone's going to believe it. So I think, like, I'm trying to teach my kids now the potential dangers of that, like try and find the source of that video. It's like on YouTube, like they believe everything on YouTube. And it's like, well, that's not true. That's some random person's opinion.
Yeah.
Like find the source of where they found that information and go back, because you'll find out whether it's true or not.
Yeah. And then, you kind of have to teach them to analyse it and make sure it's a challenging world.
Yeah.
So on that, with parenting, we are in a stage of our life where, yes, we are growing humans and we are trying to make them the best versions of themselves they can be. How has becoming a father and having children changed your life, changed your work, and how are you trying to grow them?
Look, it has changed my life extraordinarily. I suppose my perspective has changed on what's important in life, in the world. I suppose the way I communicate with other people has changed. I think I'm much more patient and much more, patient and much more have much more empathy, I think, with people now, because I see similarities in the way my children struggle with things that I do with other people. And you go, well, that's just an adult version of struggling, that the child's struggling with a shoelace and that person's struggling trying to do that thing. So it's like I guess I feel I understand people better to some degree. It's a wonderful experience. It's incredibly hard. Incredibly hard.
Yes.
And like I said before, it makes you feel like working feels incredibly easy compared to, managing with your children sometimes, because you're dealing with irrationality, and you deal with irrationality at work too all the time, but it's just different, I suppose. I think it's made me I hope it's made me a better person.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like, if I have any influence on their character, which apparently parents who do have a bit, but not as much as friends, and not as much as friends' other families and community, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I just hope that, I take opportunities to discuss, gender identity with them and, because of the shows that I've worked on, and race and, about being judgmental and, all these sorts of things and what it is to be in a community and living with other people and that. So I hope that they, just by exposure to those ideas and thoughts, challenging what they're hearing at school and bringing home from school and all the crazy thoughts that they're bringing home from school, because they dump them on us, I think, in a way to go, what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's validating, fact-checking almost.
Fact-checking, And, what's the response, and so, I enjoy that process, and I hope that they, take that and become these open people to everyone, ideally, and not exclusive, but including people. That's the idea.
It's interesting about wanting. I think as parents, I think everyone's parents were always trying to make their children better than they were and their life better. But I think. I definitely feel for us and our family, we're trying to craft humans, that are more open, more communicative, less insular, and going back to that old style of, everyone is part of our world. So talk to everyone, be kind, and all those kind of things without being so insular.
Yeah. I guess, it's interesting. I suppose you get shaped by your experiences with people throughout your childhood and whatever as well, I guess. And you have a bad experience with someone and then it hurts you. And so you then might feel a particular way about that person. Maybe it was the way they looked or whatever. And that's easy to do as opposed to just saying it's just that person's character, not, where they're from or whatever, And I think as kids, it's easy to just plonk, and adults do that too. They plonk a person into a category as opposed to, saying, well, that's a flaw of that person's character, not of the world they come from, And so, I guess hope is to make people, make your children, I suppose, a better version as you move forward. But it's not easy.
No. I love, like, yeah, when my little almost 7-year-old comes home from school, she's like, Daddy, I heard a word at school today. And she'll be like, they said fuck. And you're just there like you're laughing your head off inside, but you're like, yes, no, darling, we don't use that word. That's some adults choose it. And it's like half of my language is blah, 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 blah. It's just like, ugh, it cracks you up. It's
I know. I mean, we say, we don't want you guys using that word. And then, my daughter's like, just... But Dad uses it. Yeah. I said, I don't use that word. I don't use it at all. It's like, yes, you do. You use it under your breath. You walk away and you hear, oh. I go, no. We hear it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my God.
You're like,
terrible.
Got to dial it down.
Yeah. But, I mean, look, it's funny. Like, as a kid, I don't think I had, just the time you live in and the world you grow up in, the community or whatever, to not be bullied, I probably fell into this terrible pit of, laughing at jokes that weren't particularly kind and nice to people, you know, and I hate that about myself now, wishing I had more guts back then to stand and say, oh, this is not cool. I mean, I did walk away from a lot of situations and, but to say something would have been better. But, I just out of self-preservation, I didn't. But, and I knew it was wrong back then, that what those kids were saying to other kids and that. But, I think you just inherit these beliefs and things, and it's only until you're confronted with a situation or a person that then changes that. You go, oh my God, why was I thinking that all along? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like there's no logic in the way I was thinking then. And, these people are lovely, or this person's lovely, or why on earth was I like, and you just inherit things, without questioning them. But I guess that's what's wonderful is you change, and I hope that my kids will inherit what I've learned at this age so that they develop that even further later,
Yeah. It's interesting, and you touched on this before, but obviously there are dickheads in the world, and there's some people you just can't, they are just a bad person. But if you sat down for 5 minutes with anyone, you would realise that, one, you could probably find a connection, and two, that anything that you thought is probably not actually true.
Yeah. Totally. That's right. And it's often, I think it's often based out, people behave that way out of lack of knowledge and out of fear, because they're frightened of what, opening up to someone, or they're frightened of, what it means about themselves, and who they might identify as if they open up and think, well, that's like me. I can't be like that. No. And they're scared of it.
So with parenting and moving forward in life, we want the best for our children. How do you want them to kind of look back on their relationship with you when they're old and grey, more grey than us?
Look, I hope they look back at me, I guess, and our relationship as a parent or someone that was very supportive of whatever they wanted to do, and that I didn't sort of roadblock them at particular points and try and push them into a particular area. So I that would be probably number one thing, I suppose, and someone that they felt was supportive and kind and warm, I guess. And look, that they felt like was unconditionally loved by, you know, I guess. I know it's a cliche, but, and it is harder. Yeah, it's hard to, as a parent, as you know, it is very hard to, separate their behaviour from who they are and to be clear about that, with them, so that they don't feel like it's them that is the problem. It's what they're doing that's the problem. Yes. And it's a hard concept for them and parents to understand. But, so I just hope that they would, be, that I was supportive, caring, and I took an active interest in what they were interested in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you very kindly for your time today. I feel that I have been warmly embraced, like your children, by yourself today.
I'm glad. I'm good. It's very happy about that.
Yeah, and so thank you for letting me pick your brain about your wonderful career and the wonderful career that you are still to have moving forward and continue to grow and just evolving with what's happening. And I think you've got a really great mindset of what to do moving forward and being a part of this great world. And so thank you very kindly for your time.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Aaron. It was awesome. Thank you.